Well, partly it's twofold. One is to establish a field out there where that thought that with deep analysis of important problems would pay off in terms of outcomes. IIASA contributes to building up an inventory of those cases. And second, that it would be possible to get scientists from nations that were at war with each other, or essentially at war with each other, to collaborate to look at some world problems that were far in the future and didn't have political overtones at present. So it was possible to work on problems of negotiation, of population, of adequate distribution of the world resources, of even looking at the climate problem. Imagine IIASA doing the climate problem in 1973, when the world became involved with that problem only 10 years later, or 20 years later. So IIASA has been out front in signaling important problems, in bringing scientists to work together. I get a thrill when I see two scientists from different countries, from Russia and someone else, and say, "Oh, I remember you from the IIASA days." And there were days when people were experimenting with working together on problems that could have been highly politicized, and having an understanding that if we want to make progress, we have to reserve some domain for those problems that can be handled above the political fiasco.
Now, to me, IIASA has gone through what, about how many crises, or how many real. There was the one when the Americans withdrew, the end of hope.
Yes.
National Academy of Science.
Yes.
Replaced, thanks to your energy and others, with the American Academy of Science.
Yes.
That's when I came as director. What were your memories then?
Oh, my memories were, I was crushed because I thought that the National Academy was doing this on purely political propaganda purposes.
It was. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, and it wasn't what the real feelings should have been.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was not very noble.
But I think the people around IIASA that do you and do the importance of the project worked indefatigably to go ahead and get recognition.
No,
And we enlisted the aid of such political bigs as Pat Moynihan
Pat Moynihan, that's right.
and Baker.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they came to the rescue of IIASA by allowing a little freedom to get through.
That's right. That's right. And then the next crisis, not crisis, the next transformation was the Berlin Wall collapsing,
Yes.
Soviet Union disappearing. What were your thoughts at that time?
Well, my thoughts were at that time, back to the first time the Soviet wall got involved. The idea of IIASA came from within the cabinet of Lyndon Baines Johnson.
Right.
We thought it would be possible for countries like the United States and the Soviet Union to work on an array of problems. Some would be politically in charge, but others would be sort of secured for future possibilities. He felt that worrying about the environment, worrying about food, adequacy of water, populations, could go on even though we were in the Cold War. And he asked George Bundy to follow through on that, and Big Bundy talked to German Grisciani, who also adopted the idea.
Right.
Well, things were going along smoothly, and I thought, gee, this is going to be a clear sailing. When one of the first things done by that group was to solicit papers, including paper of my own, on what the future institute should be like. And we were supposed to meet in England, in the UK, for an initial meeting. I remember there was a meeting scheduled to start on a Saturday at 10:30. And at 9 o'clock I showed up with my prepared remarks. They were voluminous. And only to learn that the Soviets decided not to come to that meeting. They backed out a half an hour before the meeting was supposed to start. And what was the excuse? The Berlin Wall. So they were schizophrenic that you could keep these two things separate, that you can do research on water and adequacy of agriculture and keeping it away from the politics, but we couldn't do it. And following that time, there was no messages from the United States to the Soviet Union, or from the Soviet Union to the United States. Grisciani and Bundy, who were the contacts, lost contact with each other for 3 months. When the contacts usually were 2 or 3 messages per week, and after 3 months, I more or less forgot about IIASA. It was hopeless. But we got a message from German Grisciani, and it was to the effect, what next? Not refusing at all to talk about the causes of this, having to deal with the real world, but still hopefully, and that started the ball rolling again.
It's amazing. Yeah, that's amazing.
A bit of history.
Good history.
It turned out good, but it was a very precarious one.
At times it was very precarious.
Well, I was a representative of IIASA during that period of time.
Yeah, sure.
Representing no organization, but
Well, the American Academy.
the American Academy came through.
Yeah.
Harvey Brooks played an awful big role.
Enormous effect.
And
There was a wonderful Frenchman, too, at the beginning.
Pierre Massé
Yeah.
and
Jacques
Lasson.
Lasson.
And people forget that at that beginning, the area of applied systems as we know it was probably more advanced in France
Yes, it was.
than in any other place.
But it struck me that at that time, the council members were supremely effective both as scientists, but as somehow political leaders.
Yes.
Later on, the council was not that. What do you think happened?
It was not that the council became more political.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose that's the
And bureaucratic.
fallout of ill will, of bad vibes. But you got it. You saw IIASA through some tough times. Not because of yourself. Well,
Well, I don't know.
you contributed to what we were fighting for, but what we were fighting for is right.
That's exactly right. But it started because of you, in my mind.
Yeah. But I was thrilled to be able to be there when your project was headed. Highlight was George Danzig, Alan Mann, and
Wonderful. Even though, do you remember that the walls of the temporary building we were in collapsed.
I remember the Myron Fearing
Yeah,
and others held up
held up the wall.
walls and took pictures of the slots being dilapidated. And then Cardinal Koenig,
Yes.
the important representative of the Catholic Church,
Yeah.
visited the church across the street and wanted to see IIASA. And meanwhile, in the background were these people holding up the walls.